Welcome to the Trauma Llama Club. Today we're talking about an important topic for anyone who's dealing with complex PTSD, PTSD, or anxiety. Identifying your triggers and learning how to manage them effectively. Join us. Your TLC adventure starts now.
Complex PTSD, or C-PTSD, is a diagnosable mental health condition that can develop after prolonged exposure to multiple traumatic events. It can lead to severe emotional distress, flashbacks, and difficulty managing daily life. So one of the steps of managing complex PTSD is identifying your triggers. Like, triggers are specific stimuli, such as smells, sights, sounds, specific situations, or a whole host more. All of these can invoke an intense emotional distress reaction and bring back all those traumatic memories. If you can think of the Truman Show, Truman watched his dad die and drown, supposedly, and that triggered years of issues with water, years of issues with boats.
Truman's been terrified of the water ever since.
Do you need any help, sir? You go ahead, I'll be fine.
And that's kind of what we're talking about there.
Yeah. Identifying your triggers is the most crucial step, and it's definitely the first step to regaining control over your life. Because once you start being able to identify what your triggers are, you can figure out what the patterns are and then prepare for it accordingly. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to be out in public and get activated and be able to deal with everything and everything is fine moving forward. But the difference is if you know that certain things are going to be a trigger for you and you have something to be able to ground you again, you have something to be able to address that issue for yourself, then you can take back control in your life, regain that control. It takes the power away from the triggers and the activation, from stopping you from doing what you've always loved to do. So triggers can vary from person to person. No two people who are dealing with PTSD are going to be identical, and we're all going to get activated by different things. A lot of that has to do with what our specific traumas were and what they had to do with. Common ones with PTSD or complex PTSD are going to be certain environments, loud noises, specific dates or anniversaries of events, and even smell, tastes, music, different sounds, anything. Anything can be a trigger.
Yeah, anything can be a trigger. So let's explore some tips and tricks that may help you manage your triggers effectively. So one of them can be keeping a trigger journal.
Yeah. So most people, that might be presumptive, but I'm going to say a lot of people are very aware of what their big triggers are. You know right away what's causing them. But that being said, from my experience, I didn't figure out that loud noises were a huge trigger for me until months into the process. There's certain things, because they're like a part of other environments that already trigger you, that you don't know quite how much they're playing into the situation and which things are actually triggering you in the moment. So it can be really helpful to keep a journal, and when you go out and you have an activation, to write down what was happening around you in the environment, people, definitely the things that you know triggered you, but writing down some of the more obscure things that were involved in that situation. And then as you collect the different data, for lack of a better word, eventually patterns can tend to emerge and give you an idea of like, okay, in the last 5 incidents, there were people coming at me and sudden noises and whatever, a dog,
Yeah.
right? And then when you get to the 6th one, you're like, well, I got really activated, but there wasn't a dog there and no people were coming at me. Okay, maybe sudden noises are an issue. And just being able to work through that will give you a better idea in identifying even the little triggers, because they all collaborate into activating you.
Something to be aware of as the support person is you probably already start to recognize some of these triggers, and you're probably already compensating or not recognizing that it's a trigger. So if I did something, if I said something, if I dropped something and she reacted, maybe it was an emotional reaction at the time. Maybe I took it personally. And it's like, well, why are you getting on me for doing this? Right? So just being aware of what those triggers are as well around you will also help you be able to say and recognize maybe this is a trigger for you. So you may already be aware where they are not.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you've talked about this before, and I know it's, no, I can't say I know it's hard. I know it's hard for you, but as the support person, you're not responsible for eliminating triggers from your partner or loved one or whoever you're supporting life. And I know, like, you, especially in the beginning, and I think even now, I think you have a hard time with this one, you were trying to kind of get rid of anything that might trigger me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that just ended up with you getting burnt out.
Yep.
And causing too much stress for you. So, I mean, it's helpful to, if you notice it, tell your partner, because just because you're aware that it's a trigger does not mean that the person who's experiencing it is aware of that. But don't feel like it's your role to stop it from happening, because you can't. It's going to happen regardless of how hard you try to soften that environment. And the only thing that's going to happen is caregiver burnout.
Yeah. So we talk about a trigger journal. Something else to think about are some earplugs. You use what brand?
I use loops. I actually have multiple different pairs. I've got ones that block all noise out that I sleep with. I have ones for when we go to a movie or concerts that don't affect the sound quality but still kind of turn down the noise. And then from regular day to day, I use the loop switches. And what they are is earplugs, but they've actually got 3 different settings on them, and you can basically turn down the noise of the world. So if I have it at the very top, things are a little bit muffled, but it doesn't create too much noise reduction. If I go down to the second one, it will make the noise reduction more. That's like my screaming child, but I still want to hold a conversation kind of one. And I need to block the entire world out and everyone needs to go away is the third one.
Which sometimes happens.
Which sometimes happens, depending on the situation. But like I said, initially, until I got these, I had no idea how much atmospheric noise was contributing to my anxiety. I now am incredibly sensitive to any type of noise.
Yeah.
Like we headed out to a friend's volleyball game to support her recently. And I grew up playing basketball from the time I was 5 up until university. And I was always in that gym setting with the squeaking shoes and the buzzers and the people calling out for the ball and the whistles. And I wouldn't have lasted 2 minutes without these. Yeah. And what's funny is being able to wear these in that environment actually makes it sound like it did to me before. So just things to think about if that's something you're dealing with.
Turn down the what?
I don't know that song. What is it?
I don't even know.
We're so old.
I just remember I remember it's from a video. So another thing you might want to try is trying to develop a safety plan.
Yeah. So for me, this helps when it comes to places. I have a really hard time with the city that I worked in general, but particularly certain areas of that city. And one of those places was downtown. And right after I was diagnosed, it was actually my oldest son's graduation. And sure enough, it was happening downtown, right in the middle of it, in the convention center. And I knew I wasn't going to miss that. I wasn't going to allow my PTSD to take that away from me. But I was really worried. I was really anxious, even leading into it, about what would happen, because you've got noise, crowds, the location. There was so much that had to do with that, where it really pushed my comfort levels, which is an understatement.
Yeah. We're talking an 800-person graduation, then all of their guests. So it was a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we developed a safety plan. What did we do?
Okay. So, well, what did you do? You actually started it. It was his idea, which was fantastic. But he decided ahead of time to drive down to the location. He checked out where parking was, where drop-off zones were, so that I didn't have to walk through the city to get to the site, because we knew that would have ended it before it even started. Yeah. And then we chose a way to get there, a path to get there, that was less activating for me. So we weren't driving through the most activating streets and driving past different locations that were highly activating to me. So we found the safest route in. Chris dropped me and the kids off. We went directly inside. He went and parked the car and then came and met with us. I used the loops to navigate the noise. We navigated the crowd as best as we could, with Palmer helping and Chris kind of blocking on either side. And then we reversed it when it was time to leave.
Yeah. It just took a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought, and just that ability to say, okay, we know this is a trigger, so how do we eliminate or minimize it to the best of our ability?
Yeah. And so I know people have reacted before when I've told them this, and maybe people out there are thinking it like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. Everything now for me is a lot of work. I've never been this high maintenance in my entire life, and that's saying something. Fuck you. You're not supposed to agree with that.
Look, I am not high maintenance. I'm not. Chandler!
You're a little high maintenance.
You are on my list.
But I'm incredibly high maintenance now. Everything requires strategizing, planning. How are we going to come at this? Thinking about the different elements of where we want to go and how it might affect me, and preparing for it accordingly.
For everything.
For everything. Absolutely everything. But the beauty of that is, because we do that, I haven't lost the ability to still go out and enjoy the things that I did before. It's changed a little bit. There's a risk-benefit consideration to it.
Certain parameters.
Right? Like, we have always loved going to music concerts. I know that certain venues, depending on location and number of people, are not going to happen. It's just, there's no way I'm going to navigate it, at least at this time. But I can wait till some of those artists are playing in a different location that's a little bit smaller. Maybe it's a different city, maybe whatever, right? And we go to those and then instigate our safety plan and go accordingly. So everything takes more planning, more time, more forethought, more strategizing, but I'm not letting the PTSD stop me from enjoying my life. And I think luckily I have Chris, and he's willing to put up with all of the high maintenance energy that goes into me living my life like that. But it's a big thing for me, because for a while, especially in the beginning, I was definitely letting the PTSD and my symptoms and the fear of the activation steal away my joy. So
I like maintaining you.
Sorry, but you're not easygoing, but you're passionate, and that's good. And when you get upset about the little things, I think that I'm pretty good at making you feel better about that. And that's good too. So they can say that you're high maintenance, but it's okay because I like maintaining you.
So you've probably seen the other video. If you haven't, check it out. But when you go to the grocery store, it can be a very big trigger for you.
a little bit.
Yeah. So one way to minimize, because you can't stop going to the grocery store.
Gotta eat.
What's that? You gotta eat.
Gotta eat.
One way is obviously doing the pickup grocery delivery, like where you can park and they bring out your groceries. You don't get to choose, make instantaneous choices or on the fly choices. That's one way. Something else that we also do is we get the delivery services for your groceries, your box dinner style.
Like your pre-prepped dinner meals. We happen to go with Fresh Prep. There's lots out there, good food, chef's plate, whatever. And that helps in a variety of ways. So one, you don't really have to think about what the dinners are before you do it. You plan it out weeks in advance, and what comes is what you're doing. It doesn't stop me from having to go to the grocery store, but it does stop me from having to do long, involved shops. So obviously we still cook regular stuff for breakfast and for lunches and whatnot, and that's all grocery shopping. But when I'm going into a store, I'm not looking for 4 different spices, and I need 5 different types of vegetables, and I need, hitting every single place and having to spend an extended time in there, which is very activating for me.
Standing at the spices and people are reaching around you to get stuff.
So, The other thing that helps with that is that you guys have seen it before. When I do get activated, when I'm out and about and I've been in the community for the day, I'm exhausted in the afternoon. So I usually end up crashing and sleeping. So that's what I need to do to recharge, to be able to function. But there's nothing worse than waking up at 4 o'clock, 4:30 and being like, okay, now I have to cook dinner, and you're groggy and you don't know if you have all the ingredients that you need, and you don't have a definitive plan, and that can be very, very stressful.
Yeah.
So this way, I know I have all the ingredients to make dinner. There's a plan for it. There's a recipe that walks me through step by step, and it just takes all the thinking and that spontaneous decision making out of it, which is a huge thing.
Yeah. And as a supporter, it actually helps me as well, because if you've had a triggering day,
I can't even
you don't have the
that.
capacity for it. If I've been at work, I can walk in and the question is, what are we having for dinner? It's okay, I know what's for dinner. You can't cook it. I can have it on the table in 40 minutes because it's already right there. There's no thinking to it. So.
Yeah, that's been huge for us. That's really helped us.
Yeah.
Oh, and a tip, if people want to try this out, Costco has Fresh Prep and Good Food.
I'm not
Well,
sure.
anyways, there's two.
Check out Costco.
Check out Costco if you have a Costco membership. There's 2 boxes that they actually have 20% off of. So not only is all the food sourced from Canada, so the price is never increased with the tariffs or anything like that. If you go in and buy their gift cards, you get an additional 20% off what the actual prices are. So it ends up being very, very affordable too.
Yeah. Going on to another tip, something that you're probably already doing without even thinking about it. It's just a natural thing. And as a supporter, you're probably doing your own thing anyways, are grounding techniques.
Yeah, so I mean, grounding techniques, there are so many different ones, and different things work for different people. So it's largely a trial and error situation. Some people are very tactile. They need to focus on touch. And I'm kind of like that. I've got Palm that comes with me, and we like to call his ears furry Ativan. but he has different texture of fur for different parts of his body. And so I can focus on the different textures. And it gives me something, like some people will choose different things in their environment and focus on them. I use Palmer, and it just helps you de-escalate and come into that moment. Some people use smells, like they'll carry around essential oils. They have certain scents that work for them. That's not a favorite for mine. That really didn't do anything. And that wasn't for me. Not everything is going to be for everybody. Yeah. Some people will use, what is it called? The mammalian reflex? Mm-hmm. So the whole theory of like dipping your face in cold water or your hands in cold water. I think you talked about that previous in like a tip your temperature kind of situation. But drinking cold water helps too. Because when you're in a moment, you're not going to run and dunk your head like in public, right? However, drinking cold water has the same effect. That one is very effective for me. And I just learned recently that sour candies work the same way, which is fantastic because even with a good water bottle, your water only stays cold for so long, right? These I can have just in my purse. And I don't know, if you have kids, you've probably heard of these things. It's toxic waste, super sour candies. And like the kind that your kids give to you to laugh at your reaction. And that's the level that I need to bring me back down. But I was surprised to find that actually works for me too. Yeah.
It was really interesting. And for the record, we are not sponsored by any of these products.
No, it's just sharing what works for us, so that if there's something in there that you haven't tried before, maybe give it a shot and it'll help you too.
You'll start to learn what works for you as the person dealing with PTSD, and you'll also start to learn what works for you as the supporter. Just a little side note, alcohol is not a grounding technique. That's a coping technique.
It's a numbing technique.
That's a numbing technique. That's a whole different animal we're not going to get into right now.
No.
But recognize which ones are positive and which ones are negative for you.
Yeah. The other thing I would say as a support person is if you know what works for the person you're supporting. I keep saying partner because that's our relationship, but it could be a friend, it could be anybody. If you know what helps them, giving them a reminder in that moment is really good, because I may plan accordingly and I've got my candies and I've got my water bottle and then I get activated because my executive functioning shuts off. I'm not thinking, oh, I'm activated, I should take a sip of water, right? And so it can be difficult to instigate some of those coping mechanisms. But if you know what helps your partner, you can say to them, hey, maybe you should have candy, or would you like a sip of water? Or why don't we take a moment and just step away? And having somebody just, oh yeah, I've got my water, right? Makes you be able to utilize those more effectively.
And the opposite of a tip would be something like saying, hey, you should just calm down. You should just stop stressing about it. Just don't think about it.
Yeah, you only ever did that in the beginning, and that didn't work out well for you.
Learn from my mistakes.
Nor can the person turn it off. There are many times, even in the moment, I can articulate that this is, to me, I will say, this is stupid. This is illogical. And I can articulate that it's illogical, but it's like an uncontrollable physiological response. My body doesn't know the difference.
Yep.
And so even though I can recognize that, I can't stop it from happening. Yeah.
Just calm down. Another tip that we would suggest is creating your own really good support network. I believe this is super essential. In my opinion, maybe not yours, probably the most essential trick or tip that we could probably give you.
Definitely one of the top ones for sure.
Yeah, you want to be able to connect with family, friends, support groups, anyone who kind of understands the PTSD experience. And it gives you an outlet, someone to reach out to when that assistance is really needed.
Yeah. Sorry.
No?
We have found this, and it works for I think the support person too, the caregivers too, because this is hard on you. It's not just hard on the person who is experiencing the PTSD, it's hard on the person who has to be around it, walk on eggshells, sometimes gets pushed to their limit, and yet is trying not to inflame the situation or aggravate the situation, so holding it in. So it's kind of like being on the job and needing to like debrief and get it out. It's easier to do that with somebody who's walked that path. What I've found when we get together with some of our friends who have PTSD is there are lots of things, lots of symptoms, lots of reactivity situations, lots of different ways that we get triggered that you can very easily carry a sense of shame about, right? You don't want to be the asshole that gets angry on a hair trigger, right? You don't want, like, there's so many different things. And I think when you get together, and it doesn't excuse the behavior, it doesn't excuse that reaction, but when you talk to other people about it and they're like, yeah, that happens to me too, or that causes me to react that way too, or whatever it is.
Sense of understanding.
There's a sense of understanding, there's a sense of validation that like you're not crazy, and especially if you don't have control over those reactions. I don't know. I'm not articulating it well.
There's just that ability to understand that they may have been in those type of shoes. They may have been in those type of experiences in terms of their triggers.
Yeah, and it's not getting together to trauma dump with people and talk about, you know, group therapy. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, I was walking down the street and this happened and I lost my shit.
Yeah.
Or I encountered this situation and I had a really hard time. I almost couldn't stay there.
Yeah.
And being able to normalize those experiences and understand that it is a cause and effect situation with your PTSD and the activation to the symptomology and what it brings out in you, can eliminate that feeling of shame or guilt or self-blame.
Yeah. And also recognize the fact that, like, you may surround yourself with people, like, we're both first responders. It's fortunate and unfortunate that we know quite a few people who are dealing with PTSD. So when you do reach out to them and you do kind of use them as your support network, you talked about trauma dumping. We use that term as basically all you do is explain all the things that are going on with your life, and that person just kind of absorbs it, or vice versa. They're just blah, 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 all their trauma onto you. That whole idea is why we came up with the channel. There's probably people out there, I can almost guarantee it, that don't have that support network, that don't have the right people to talk to and ask questions to.
Don't feel comfortable reaching out.
Don't feel comfortable reaching out.
Yeah.
Or the support, and they see it in their person they're supporting, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand what's going on. And that's kind of why we started the Trauma Mama Club, is just to give an outlet for people to maybe start to learn. They don't know what to look up. They don't know how to help that person or help themselves. And gives a chance to have you recognize that you're not alone, right? Whether you're the support or whether you're the person dealing with it, there's millions of people out there dealing with this, and there's going to be information.
Yeah, it's actually quite amazing how people just don't talk about it. They're not comfortable with being vulnerable when it comes to mental health. And like, this is going to give it away. This is like day 2. This won't release for a while, this episode, but technically it's day 2 of the release of our channel. And I have had people reach out to me that aren't even first responders, that are people that we know from other aspects of our life. We've known them all our lives. And they're like, hey, we deal with PTSD in our family too. And I wouldn't have known that, never knew that. And so it's so important that I think, especially if someone is in that space where they've really isolated themselves, that even if it's just the ability to click on a short video and see themselves, recognize themselves reflected in some of the stuff that we're talking about and say, hey, I do that too, right?
Sounds familiar.
Or it's something that they've been beating themselves up about.
Yeah.
And maybe it's helpful to hear that's just part of the PTSD.
Yeah.
And it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And you're not alone. And you're not a bad person for reacting that way. It's actually quite normal if you have this disorder.
You're not alone.
So we've talked about things that you can do in the moment when you're out there and you're activated and you're triggered. But what can you do after the fact? Because we all know that once you get activated, you can be very dysregulated, your executive functioning can shut off, you can get physiological symptoms. So what do you do on a day-to-day basis when that happens, or you can feel it coming on and you want to prevent it? And we hear this all the time in society, but it comes down to prioritizing self-care. And that is something that's incredibly difficult for anybody, because we live in such a fast-paced society where the expectations are to push and go and give to your family, give to your children, give to your work, give. It isn't until the last couple of years that there's been more of a focus on trying to balance that out. And I know personally, I've always sucked at it. I still suck at it. I try, but it is what it is.
Keep trying.
Right? But some of that can look like creating or getting involved in activities that bring you joy. Maybe leaving the house isn't necessarily your thing, but it could be something that maybe gives you a sense of accomplishment. Like I do Spanish lessons on the VR. That gives me a sense of accomplishment. I work on this in the videos. That gives me a sense of accomplishment, a feeling that I'm helping, hopefully. On a day where I'm feeling well, that might look like baking something or a treat or something for my family, or playing video games with Chris, which usually ends up with me losing and getting activated, or going for a workout, not in the gym because it's too peoply and loud noises, but we have a gym downstairs, and I'll go and do a yoga or a meditation or a strength workout if I'm feeling it. On a day where I'm struggling a little bit more, that might be something as simple as watching a TV show that I enjoy, or a YouTube channel that I enjoy, or maybe instead of a workout, it's me and Palmer going for a walk to the dog park, and that's in place of my workout for that day. Yeah. And it's also about pacing. And when I say that, I mean really paying attention to when your body and your brain are getting fatigued. If you're having a hard time focusing, if you're starting to have a hard time processing information, making decisions, it's time to stop and take some quiet time, go do something that's going to help you reset and recharge before you jump back into it again.
Yeah. And that goes as well for the support person. You have to practice your own self-care. You've mentioned it before in another video. It's just like the airplane, put on your own oxygen mask before putting it on someone else.
Actually, you mentioned that.
Okay, well, I'm really smart because I mentioned it. But it can be exhausting trying to manage the symptoms of what you're experiencing at the time, right? So you try and take on more and more and more, right? Well, that becomes more for you, more around the family, more around the house. So you have to be able to say, I'm at my capacity. I need to stop and do my own self-care, work out, go for a walk, go for a nap, order food in instead of cooking dinner, whatever it is that you need in that moment. It's really important that you do it for yourself as well.
Go spend time with friends.
Be
social.
Spend time with friends.
Anything that helps you relax and recharge.
Identifying and managing your triggers is a vital part of living with complex PTSD. By understanding your triggers and using these tips and tricks, we're hoping that maybe you can start to regain some control and improve your quality of life.
Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you and you feel like you or somebody that you love might be dealing with PTSD or complex PTSD, just remember that you're not alone. There are supports and resources out there, so please reach out for help.
Take care and remember to indulge in the TLC that you deserve. We'll see you in the next video. So another tip.
Let's see that in an instant replay.